Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. I am back after a bit of a hiatus. I took a couple weeks to cover Computex and cleanse my spirit in the mountains, but now that I've returned, let's take a look at how things are going in the world of PC hardware. Pretty standard for 2026, but at least we humans are bestowed with nature's greatest gift, morbid curiosity, driving us to poke and prod at all that mess and ask why these things have transpired and when, if ever, they will get better. Cheers, by the way. For not only has RAM pricing been tainted by the blight of AI demand, but so accelerateth the inflation of NAND storage costs as well. And in the world of PC building, there is much lamentation and woe. Still, hope remains while company is true, and so upon this summer's solstice, I charge you, my friends, to preserve and protect those precious components that you already have, to extend a helping hand to new builders who are just learning of the present crisis, and to always remember that adversity builds character. It is Father's Day too, after all, and I'm proud of you, son, because it's also time for tech news.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's Wood Series cases, adding a touch of warmth and style to a variety of existing chassis designs, such as the TR200WS, seen here in the white snow finish, showcasing light-colored wood-textured accents while maintaining the TR200's core features, such as easily removable side and top panels, magnetic dust filters, and support for an optional 6-inch LCD screen. Black cases like the TR300WS are paired with darker maple-inspired accents for a warm and stylish aesthetic, and of course the case still includes a tempered glass side panel, excellent airflow, and support for 360mm radiators for AIO or custom cooling. Thermaltake's WS chassis lineup includes other cases from the View series and more, so for further details click the Thermaltake Wood Series sponsor link in the video description. I'm not sure how often you guys talk to people, like face-to-face conversation style, but I do risk it once or twice a year, and I was recently surprised to learn that there are people who are not wholly ensconced in the world of technology as we are, and those people may not have even heard of the great PC hardware shortage of 2026. While you or I might agonize over memory prices in Germany reaching plus 419% since last year, a Lexar rep claiming that the RAM they conveniently sell will double in price yet again by the end of 2026, or companies like CXMT selling their chips for market price rather than handing out free kits to anyone who can pass a Turing test, other people live their lives in blissful ignorance, having only to worry about all the other stuff wrong with the world. But that will probably change soon because cell phones are up next, and even normies use those. Specifically, the memory in cell phones will be increasing prices as we move further along 2026's back nine, as just RAM can account for over 50% of the cost of a new phone, per Carl Pei, who is the CEO of Nothing. So you guys have something in common. And yes, even the mighty Apple is signaling that price increases are unavoidable, and the situation around memory chips has become unsustainable. Guess they'll need to update that carbon neutral by 2030 landing page that they made. So AI has taken our affordable RAM, GPUs, SSDs, and now phones, but at least we can still build our own PCs with our own two hands like God intended. Shit. Looking at all these things with some perspective though, I posted Price Watch for June this weekend. You can still buy components, just RAM in particular cuts deep with 4 to 5 times price increases since fall 2025, and SSDs are getting worse too. It's clear that just as with RAM, where memory fabricators have shifted production to HBM memory that AI data centers use rather than consumer-oriented chips, NAND fabs are doing the same with what is dubbed HBF, high bandwidth flash, specifically designed for AI workloads with seemingly endless memory needs, and both incompatible and impractical for consumer home use, of course. While it doesn't use HBF, a prime example of what is sucking the storage market dry right now was on display at Computex, an Nvidia SCADA, or Scaled Accelerated Data Access Server, as demoed by YWin, because why win when you can lose, I guess, but it can house up to 96 liquid-cooled SSDs, 96 for up to 2.9 petabytes of storage per unit. It's no wonder that the retail SSD market has almost disappeared, per Silicon Motion VP Nelson Duan, with such massive whales gobbling up all the capacity at this rate. It's almost enough to make you think that China's approach with their NAND and DRAM manufacturers like CXMT and YMTC, who are compelled to produce consumer chips alongside enterprise chips as a condition of receiving government aid, is a sensible one, because catering only to massive enterprise customers whose buying power is largely dependent on their stock price might not be the wisest long-term strategy. Right, continuing on to some less lofty news, we have good old social media-based rumors that are at least about consumer GPUs and CPUs. Nvidia's RTX 50 Super series, whom many thought were cancelled as yet another casualty of AI's market influence, might not be dead yet if you lend credence to posts from leaker Mega-sized GPU. They might still launch at the end of 2026 or in early 2027, and they might heavily feature 3GB GDDR7 modules, which have taken a long time to stockpile apparently. Gosh, I wonder why. The rumor was somewhat corroborated by posts from the BenchLife forum, where an early 2027 launch with a CES announcement was pitched, and this all seems to fall in line with the cynical expectation that I and many in the industry share, that consumer launches will be slowed and spaced out while manufacturers ride the AI wave as long as possible until it either breaks and rolls back, or ushers in a new era of renting your CPU and GPU power from the cloud for an ever-increasing monthly fee. But hey, at least there's a newly rumored RTX 5060 Super now, with 12GB of VRAM, while the RTX 5070 Super will supposedly be bumped up to 18GB, and the 5070 Ti and 5080 Super will be outfitted with 24GB. Again, if these rumors prove true. Another rumor rattling around the news sites this week was about AMD's Zen 6 desktop CPUs, codenamed Olympic Ridge, which notably were not mentioned or hinted at during Computex a couple weeks ago. This one comes from a leaker I'm less familiar with, GoTao_Kai3, so I'm skeptical, but here it is. AMD's next-gen CPUs will no longer ship with an iGPU, in order to include an NPU, or Neural Processing Unit, cough cough for AI, cough cough, as well as CUDIMM support. CUDIMMs are clock unbuffered DIMMs that can hit very high speeds, but didn't do much to improve gaming performance for Intel's Core 200 series CPUs. And apparently they won't natively support DDR4 either. As mentioned, I am skeptical of this info because AMD's iGPU introduced to desktop chips with the Ryzen 7000 series was dead useful. Not for gaming, not in the least, but for video out with no discrete GPU, and particularly for troubleshooting, it's something I'd much rather have than not. And while I'm sure AMD will slap AI branding onto the Olympic Ridge lineup somehow, I sincerely hope this is not the way they do it. But unless AMD comes out with some very detailed pre-launch demos or spec sheets, we're unlikely to find out the answer until early 2027. Speaking of unanswerable questions, what is the shortest possible time tech briefs could use without resulting in a serious wedgie? I'm too scared to find out. But in another timeline, I would have been super excited to check out these next-gen server sockets. AMD is teasing both the SP7 and SP8 platforms for next-gen EPYC Venice and Verano CPUs, launching in late 2026 and 2027 respectively. If I wasn't already sad that these are taking precedent from consumer chips and will likely power a bunch of data centers people don't want, I'd be excited for the enterprise trickle-down usually signaled by the debut of this type of hardware, like Venice's 256-core per socket Zen 6C CPUs that support up to 12,800 megatransfers per second, 16-channel memory, and 128 PCI Express 6.0 lanes. Equally distasteful was the first look at Intel's LGA 9324 socket, clearly requiring bigger hands to encompass all 9,324 pins. This will house Xeon Diamond Rapids chips that Intel will actually be manufacturing on their domestic 18A-P process, so that's good, I guess. And they actually announced them at Computex, which means production must be moving along at a reasonable clip. Still, no Nova Lake announcement though. Sigh. But hey, speaking of data centers and cell phones earlier, and something to make this show's main subject matter less depressing, how about using old phones to make the data centers instead of compromising the global NAND and DRAM supply? That's what researchers at the University of California, San Diego have done in collaboration with Google, and thanks to even 3-year-old Pixels sporting single-core performance that's better than many common server CPUs, a 20-phone cluster was able to support app duties for a classroom of 75+ students. The phones are stripped down to the PCB and loaded with a Linux distro that can handle orchestration software like Kubernetes. They're planning to scale up to a 2,000-phone data center as the project continues. So while this won't immediately solve the hardware shortage, it's a great way to recycle devices that might otherwise be headed to the landfill, and who knows, with enough old phones, maybe AI can be defeated once and for all. Or perhaps we are all doomed, and the best we can hope for is some good distraction from the inevitable destruction. And there, I have good news. On Thursday, Rockstar officially announced that we can pay them early for the game that's not launching until November. GTA 6, which will also initially require a PS5 or Xbox Series X or S console to play, as the PC launch will happen between 6 months and 5 years after the November 19th debut. But on Thursday, you can say, "Take my money, Rockstar," or Take-Two Games more accurately, and if you're lucky, they might drop a new trailer that day too. They did also release the box art for the game though, which is basically as good as playing it. And all this was definitely not timed to distract from the news that a UK employment tribunal ruled against Rockstar for their firing of 31 union members back in October 2025. The case will now proceed to a full trial from September to October, just a month before the GTA 6 launch. Surely all the GTA fans will hold off on pre-ordering until it's determined whether or not Rockstar was complicit in union-busting activities. Definitely. But there you have it, guys. Tech news for the week, and if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video description if you're interested. And you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise like t-shirts and hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again, everyone. Cheers, and we'll see you next week.